Welcome back to NIASO. If you are a new, hang on a second. Oh my word. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
You got this. Come on.
Welcome to NIASO. We're pleased to have you here. If you're new, consider joining the family. For returning family members, welcome. Today we have an exciting conversation with a dear Kimberly.
Hi, good day, everyone. So my name is Kimberly McLean, and I am a member of the Cayman Islands, one of the Cayman Islands Toastmasters clubs. And I'm here today to speak to you about how to prepare for public speaking. So I'm going to start it off by saying that Sir Ralph Richardson said that the most precious thing in speeches are the pauses. However, I'm going to switch it up and say that the most precious thing in public speaking are the 4 Ps. And we are going to get into those 4 Ps. So first, I'm going to start off by letting you all know that I am by no means an expert in public speaking. I am an extreme introvert who does not like public speaking at all. So I bet you're wondering, well, why am I presenting to you today? Well, I identified public speaking as well as impromptu speaking as one of my areas for development and growth. And that is why I joined the Civil Service Toastmasters Club.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you recognize that you had an area you wanted to develop on, and not only did you develop on it, you actually went out of your way to find ways to develop on it, but to try and get to a place of excellence. I know you've been very modest when you say you by no means an expert, but you're a great public speaker. That's so exciting.
Well, thank you. It did take a lot of practice, though. It took a lot of practice and a lot of work to be able to reach this level of being able to speak in public. So for most people, the number one fear that they have is public speaking. And I'm not talking only introverts, I'm talking about all people.
Yeah.
But I do know from the introverted side of me that when I prepare to speak in public, I get full of stress, full of anxiety, and I get extremely nervous. And sometimes I am not able to deliver the message that I set out to do. And that is why what I'm going to speak to you on today is going to help you to prepare yourself for that, so that stress and anxiety does not overwhelm yourself when you go to speak in public.
Yeah, and I completely recognize with that. There are times when you have to make a speech and you stand there and all these people are looking at you. And you think, oh my goodness, and they're just looking at you, especially when it's serious and it's quiet, they're looking at you. So then what do we do, Kimberly?
So in my specific circumstance, when people are staring at you and you are starting to feel that hint of nervousness, I either stare past the people, so look towards the back of the room, but also keep in mind that you're supposed to still give them eye contact as well. And that can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but if you just glance around the room, you don't have to actually look them in the eye. Just the fact that you are looking around the room, they feel like you're giving them eye contact.
Right.
And I mean, give 1 or 2 people eye contact, but don't stare at them continuously. And then after you look around the room, just look straight forward, and you don't have to be looking at somebody directly. But every few, I guess, depending on how long your speech is, just glance around the room every so often, and then continue speaking and look back up. So that is my recommendation for if you are feeling stressed by all of the eyes watching you while you're speaking.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Thank you. So you are talking about the 4 Ps?
Yes. So we're going to get into these 4 Ps. The 4 Ps are plan, prepare, practice, and present. These 4 P's are what I use to help me successfully navigate how to speak in public, and I hope that it can help all of you as well. So we're going to start off with the first P, the plan. When you are planning, or you know you have a public speech coming up, or you have an event where you're going to be required to do a toast or do any sort of speech, speaking arrangement, the first important thing to note is know your audience. Right. In order to keep an audience attention throughout a speech, you have to know who your audience is and how to make that speech relatable. So that's the number 1 part of planning. The number 2 portion of planning is to know your topic. So if you are speaking on a topic that you have absolutely no idea about, it is guaranteed that you are going to be nervous. You are going to be anxious. So that is why in the planning phase, if you don't have any real life experience on that topic, you should get to reading and researching to figure out and to learn yourself what you're going to be presenting on. Otherwise, the nerves are going to get you, your words are going to buckle up, and it's not going to make for a successful speech.
Yeah. When you mentioned audience earlier, so in terms of audience, any more tips on audience? Because the audience might be young people, students, or it might be a work situation for a person who just got their first job, or it could be anything. So is there any tips in terms of how to tailor it for different types of audience?
Yes. So for example, if you know that you are going to be speaking at a church.
Yeah.
Normally in church settings, you don't tend to add too many jokes or like humor to your speeches, and you wouldn't curse in your speech because you're in a Christian setting or in a church setting.
Yeah.
If you are at a wedding, you know that you're going to add some personal stories about the bride and groom in your speech. So you need to know who your bride and groom are. So if the bride and groom are an elderly couple, your story is going to be quite different than what it is if it's like a new couple that, sorry, not a new couple, a younger couple that is, you know, in their early 20s.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like just understanding those little nuances and adjusting what you feel would be appropriate for that circumstance.
Okay, thank you.
So the last part about planning is to know yourself. I'm going to give you an example based on me. So because a very big aspect of me developing my public speaking skills was to also work on my impromptu speaking. So my impromptu speaking is being able to pull topics out of my head without having it necessarily written down in a full-blown speech. So when I prepare speeches or prepare to speak, I normally just do bullet points to remind myself of what I need to speak on. But then I use my brain to help develop how to just make the words come out fluently, but we're going to get into that next. It takes a lot more than just, you know, trying to think of stuff coming up on the fly, but you have to know yourself. If you're a person who is not able to use just bullet points and do a 20-minute presentation on bullet points, then it is advisable that you prepare word for word what you need to say in an audience until you've reached that level. And I will say, for me personally, I don't write the full speeches out because then I tend not to pay attention to the room.
Right, yes, because you're busy then focused on just reading verbatim.
Correct. So I'm more focused on reading the paper word for word than focusing on the room and reading the room, because sometimes you have to switch it up because it's all based on like your perception of who your audience is as well. However, if you do say something and it strikes a chord or strikes a nerve with somebody in the audience, You're able to see that if you're looking at the audience versus looking down in your paper and just reading the entire speech.
Yeah.
So that is the first P, plan. Know your audience, know your topic, and know yourself. The next P is to prepare. So preparation is key to delivering a successful speech. Preparation of what you're going to say, preparation of the order that you're going to say it in. So normally the speech is structured by, intro, body, and conclusion, depending on what type of speech you're doing. But most speeches fall into that category where you split it into the 3 different sections. And also remembering that you want your message that you're delivering to stick with your audience. So one tip that I was told to help your message stick is to tell the audience what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then remind them of what you told them.
Oh, I see. So that again, that's really critical. So you tell them what you're going to tell them.
Yes. And then you actually tell them.
Oh, then you tell them.
And you remind them of what you told them. So at different areas of the speech. So at the beginning, where you normally people present like an agenda or what they're going to speak about. That is telling them what you're going to tell them. And then you get into the body of the speech and you actually tell them and go into more detail. And then when you're concluding, you make sure you remind them of what you told them.
Got it. And it's interesting that people don't feel it's been repeated. It just feels like they understand.
Sorry, can you repeat what you just said?
It's interesting because you're basically telling people 3 times.
Right.
And people do that. And I walk away thinking, oh, I understand. I don't walk away thinking I've been told it 3 times. It takes that reaffirmation for my brain to sink in. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you just mention one thing in a speech or a presentation one time, that thing that you mentioned only once is likely going to be the thing that everybody forgets. And if it was an important part of the message, that's not good. So your important pieces of your message, you make sure you repeat it at least 3 times so that people can hear it again and again. Because, sometimes words go in one ear and out the next. That tends to happen when you only say it one time.
That's going to help me because I have the habit where I'll say something and I wouldn't necessarily, I may tell them what I'm going to tell them and then tell them, and I don't know that I repeat it again. So people may not get the full value of what you're saying because I only told them once because I thought they were listening. They weren't listening. No.
That is the biggest misconception when it comes to speaking right now, especially in this COVID environment. I don't want to bring that up, but when you are on like Zoom calls, people pretend that they're listening and they're not actually hearing it. But there's something psychologically that happens that, oh, wait, I heard her say that word before. I should be paying attention to that. And it kind of triggers something that says, oh, this must be important. Let me write that down. And then they hear it again. So it's like, okay, this must really be an important part of this. So I don't know if you've noticed, but like when people are taking notes,
yes,
sometimes let's say it's like an hour-long training session and the person only comes out with like 5 bullet points of notes.
Yeah.
More often than not, those bullet points are the topics or the areas that were repeated.
Oh, I see. This is really going to help me because I make presentations all the time with work and I don't necessarily know, and I repeat some things because it's often explaining something audit, something risk, something. But this is going to help me to try and remember to reaffirm it at the end.
Definitely.
Because it doesn't sink in until you say it many times. So adults, we're just bigger children. I see.
Yeah, And children are just younger adults.
That's really, wow. That's interesting, because you often feel like adults would hear you say it once and it's sinking. No, you have to say it many times. Bigger children.
Yeah,
Ah,
you do.
cool. Okay.
So that's the second P. So the first P was plan. The second P was prepare. The third P is practice. So practice, practice, practice. Practicing beforehand helps you feel prepared, and it also reduces your anxiety and reduces your stress level, because you walk into the meeting space or wherever it is that you're speaking, and you're feeling a little bit more confident in knowing that you've practiced this speech, you've practiced what you're going to say, you've prepared and you've planned and you've done all your research. So just doing the prior two P's of planning and preparing and then practicing, it helps you tremendously with anxiety and stress if you find public speaking to be a very stressful situation for you. It also helps you to make less errors, because if you've done a run through, you would have spotted where you use crutch words. So for instance, my crutch word is hum. Was it hum? No, not hum.
Yes, those.
No, I'm sorry, but I can't remember what my word was, because I never used to pay attention to them until I joined Toastmasters. And after joining Toastmasters now, when people have a crutch word, all I can hear are the crutch words. So just know that sometimes that distracts from it. So, well, so, oh, like so. So like
Yes.
some people, if they don't know what they're going to say, they'll say like so or well,
Or like, or something.
yes. And they'll repeat the word, or they will, that's it. Is my crutch word. If you don't know the word that's coming out next, or when I don't know a word that's coming out next, I tend to use So is my crutch word.
You know, one of the key things you just said, you said using a crutch word distracts from what you're saying.
Yes.
Because often we'll feel like, oh, a crutch word is just something used and it doesn't bother anyone. But now the realization is it distracts from what you're saying. So that's really detrimental. That's really key. Thank you for that.
It is very key, especially for people who have been in Toastmasters. We are taught critical listening skills as well. Yeah. So if we are like, there's a role called grammarian. Grammarian has to pay attention to people who are using crutch words or using vocabulary words incorrectly. When I was grammarian, it just trained my ears so well that all I could think about was the crutch words. And it also helped me to highlight myself. Okay, I say a lot.
Yeah.
I say So instead of using crutch words, you're supposed to pause and never be afraid to pause. So if you need to gather your thoughts,
yeah,
just pause. Don't say Just
yes.
pause, think it, and then go on to your next sentence. The only way that you can highlight or notice crutch words though is if you practice in front of somebody, or if you record yourself practicing and then you replay it for yourself, then you're able to hear yourself if you say a lot.
That's a really good tip. Imagine if you record yourself, then you will actually see how your delivery came about, which often would be different from how you thought it came about.
Exactly. I remember the first time I recorded myself and listened to it, I'm like, that's how I sound? Are you sure? It's like, that can't be me. But it's a real eye opener, and it helps you to identify areas that you need to improve on speaking, identifying your crutch words, and knowing that you need to just take the time to pause before continuing on.
Yeah.
So that is practicing. I also recommend practicing in front of a mirror, because practicing in front of a mirror helps you to practice your eye contact.
Yes.
especially if you are afraid of eye contact. If you're looking at yourself, sometimes it gets a little bit weird, but you shouldn't be afraid of yourself, right? And therefore you shouldn't be afraid of everybody else, because we're all humans, and that's how it is. In order to grow, practicing helps you.
Yes, that's one of the eye contacts, one of the biggest things that I notice. Some cultures some cultures make eye contact, some cultures people don't make eye contact. And when people from cultures that don't make eye contact have to do a presentation, then it becomes a little bit more challenging because it's not their natural disposition or their learned behavior. So that, I think, is one key thing. And I notice when I'm talking to people, if they're not making eye contact, I feel like they're just thinking they're thinking, shit is so boring. When is she going to be done? I need to go. I need to leave.
Oh, goodness. No, well, actually, that's a very good point too, though, because not everyone in your audience is going to be tuned in to
Right.
what you're saying, but that's fine. Once you get your message across to the majority,
Yeah.
I mean, that's worth it. Even if it's only one person that you can help with your speech, go for it.
Yeah.
Another thing that I just remembered regarding pauses and crutch words, always have a bottle of water with you. So if you feel that you use ums and ahs a lot, instead of doing that, when you feel yourself not being able to think about the next words that you need to say, reach for your bottle of water, drink it, and that's your pause. So it's not like an awkward pause or anything, because people are just saying, oh, she needed to drink some water because her throat is dry or something from talking. So that's an easier way to do it if you feel that pausing, like I just did, is awkward, right? Because that's a little bit awkward, because it's like, okay, what happened? Did she just go blank?
I thought, did it freeze?
Yeah. So instead of doing a pause, if you need more time to think, you drink the water, and that gives you a little bit more time to develop your thoughts before you speak the next word, say the next word.
It's making me think that when you are presenting, you are in charge of the pace and the time for the duration you have. And when we do ums, it's as though perhaps we forget that we're in charge of the time and the pace. So it's, and I like how you demonstrated that, because you are in charge. And if you want to pause and think, you can pause and think.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you say, sorry, like sometimes it works to be honest. Sorry, I forgot my thought. Give me a moment. You can even say that if you want, but I recommend the water trick.
Yes.
Like, that works better.
Yes, because then you don't look as though you are not able to focus for a period of time, especially if it's a short presentation. There might be an expectation or work scenario where we're always conscious that we're being evaluated, because we are being evaluated all the time.
Right. And once again, it all goes back to the setting that you're presenting in as well.
Yes.
So for work or something, use the water.
Yes.
But if you're like, I don't know, at a family reunion and you're giving a speech,
yeah,
you can just be honest with your family and say, sorry, I forgot my thought right now. Y'all need to give me 2 minutes and I'm gonna get back on this train. So like, it just depends on your whole setting.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into the 4th P then. Well, first we started with plan, then we went to prepare, we went to practice, and now we're gonna actually talk about presenting.
Yeah.
So if you've done the other 3 Ps, you are ready. You are prepared, you've planned it, you've practiced it, you've identified areas that you need to improve on. So now you need to just breathe. And sometimes people take breathing for granted, but before I have to go up and present in front of people, I take a very deep breath.
Nice.
And I imagine myself inhaling all the good and positivity and exhaling all the strength, all the stress and anxiety. And to me, that helps me. So, but if you need to figure out what helps you with stress and anxiety before a speech, then you have to figure that out for yourself. But you can try the breathing, because
Yeah.
it helps a lot. And
Even as you, when you took that breath, it made me feel like taking a breath. And it's almost like a relaxing thing, because it's like,
yeah,
you let out the breath and you now have more oxygen in your body, which revitalizes your brain cells and it makes you ready for. No, I really did. As you took a breath, I thought, oh, yes, let me take a breath.
yeah.
And it's a good point as well, because if you are going to do something, then if you're a person of faith, you can actually then say a small prayer before you go out to make that presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that. I mean, there's a whole lot of different techniques. If you're into acupressure, you can press your stress points, your anxiety points to help you. But more often than not, if you've done the 3 Ps and you are prepared, you automatically feel less stress.
You've got it.
Yeah. So for instance, if I joined you today and I didn't have any planning or any preparation done beforehand, this entire conversation could have gone an entirely different way. We could have been speaking about a whole other, like a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So preparation and
things.
practicing is definitely key. And I'm a big optimist. So I always like to think positive thoughts, especially before doing a speech, because just having negative energy around you or in your mind can throw off everything. So before you get up to do your speech, just think positive thoughts. Know that everything is going to be all right. Even if you mess up, even if you speak too fast or something, everything's going to be fine. Just pay attention, practice or present what you've practiced, and get your message across. If there's anything that you don't, if there's anything you can do in your presentation, is to get the message across that you're trying to make.
I always feel that when I go to make a presentation, I think people are here because they want to hear what I have to say. So therefore, I have a job or responsibility to make sure I deliver the best of what I can, because they're giving me their time.
Yes.
So then with that responsibility, the bigger the crowd, the more they've all given me their time. So I need to make sure they live with an understanding of what. So when I go in, my thought is, I need to make people understand what I'm here to say. I need to bring that value. So I sometimes think about that. So I go in with like, okay, each one of you have a responsibility to make that presentation work. That's really good preparing.
Yes. And also a reminder when you're presenting as well, people tend to speed up when they're in front of a crowd. So just be mindful of the time, especially if you are presenting. Let's say that you've been given a task of doing a 15-minute speech. Timeliness is always important, especially if it's a program that is sticking to timelines, like to the T. So when you're practicing, ensure that you're timing yourself so that you know, because the practicing time is the more realistic time, because you're not speed talking. You're not talking too slow because you're home practicing, you know, in your own time. However, I normally, if I have a 15-minute speech to do, I normally keep a timer in front of me. So if I have a podium, I'll have the phone set up with the timer on, just to keep track of where I am with my time.
Yeah.
And if I feel that I am ahead of the time, like that means I'm speaking too fast, so kind of slow down a little bit to pace myself.
It's I like that, and that's critical, even with them now with all the online, and there's a clock. Every few minutes I actually look at my clock, and I will actually say the time. Sometimes I'd look and I'd say, okay, it's 9:15 or it's 9:22 and we have 5 more minutes. So I'll try and make sure we finish on time, or we might need a little bit more time. I would refer to the time, but actually call it out to everyone and saying, right, we have to wrap up, we have 2 minutes. So just to bring that in, actually, yeah, I because then everyone's aware that time's going on, and especially sometimes people want to have what I may call a tangential conversation. They start going into things I don't want them to go into, because they get into like the weeds of something. Gotcha. And then I say, okay, so we're now at 9:22 and we've got 8 minutes for these remaining 4 sections. So let's see what we can do. Just bring that conversation back.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, especially depending on the setting. If you're like in a training session and you're the moderator and it's very time-based, there's nothing wrong with doing that as well.
Yeah, interesting. So so the 4 P's again, I tried to make notes and I think I missed the last one.
But don't worry, because I didn't remind you of what I told you. So I'm gonna remind you of what I told you. Yes. So if you utilize this 4 P's method, you should be successful in public speaking. The 4 P's are plan, prepare, practice, and present. And remember, in the planning phase, you know your audience, you know your topic, and you know yourself. In the preparation phase, you make sure that you structure your speech, you tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you remind them of what you told them, and then you practice. Practice, practice, practice is essential. And it helps reduce anxiety, and it helps reduce stress, and it helps to minimize any errors in your speech. Practice in front of a mirror, record yourself, and then listen back to it to remind yourself to see if you have any crutch words. And then when you get to your presentation area time, just remember to breathe, think positive thoughts. And if you are tracking ahead of the time, pace yourself and slow down, and everything will be fine. And that's it. The 4 P's: plan, prepare, practice, present.
Wow. Thank you very much, Kimberly. I've definitely learned something. I have learned to do that. Say it at the beginning, say it, and then remind them of what you said. Mm-hmm. And also that the filler words, what did you call them? The
crutch words.
Crutch words. I'm going to write that down, crutch words. The crutch words are a distraction.
Yes.
So I've learned lots of things. So thank you very much. And if anybody wants you to do, I don't know if you do, if you coach on public speaking or you just deliver speech, but people can reach out to you on your LinkedIn if they need to engage with your services.
Yes, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can get something going to see how I can better assist you.
Okay, I will, I'll put that in. So if anybody has any, you want to learn more or find out more, you can reach out to Kimberly, who is in the Cayman Islands.
Yay. So Jasmina, I just want to say, I thank you for your time today and for the opportunity to present to you and everyone on your channel. And I do hope that you and everybody else have gained some nugget of information that will assist you all in your public speaking endeavors. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. No, this was an absolute pleasure. I learned something from it. And the whole idea of the platform is to encourage, equip, motivate young people everywhere. So that when they go to do presentations, I'll learn from this as well, they can actually have all the tools that they need to excel and just continue to be awesome. So thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you very much, Kimberly.